By 1945, Nazi Germany had fielded some of the most feared armies in modern history. Steel columns that shattered borders in weeks. Formations that once seemed unstoppable. Within a few short years, every single one of them was gone. Not retreated, not reorganized, destroyed. This is how each one fell. The first to go was the 6th Army, trapped in the ruins of Stalingrad. In the summer of 1942, it pushed deep into the city, fighting street by street for every building and basement. Then in November, the Soviets launched Operation Uranus, a pincer attack that closed around the entire army in just 4 days. 250,000 German and Allied soldiers were suddenly surrounded, cut off from supply, food, and any way out. Hitler forbade retreat. An airlift meant to keep them alive never delivered enough. A relief force under Field Marshal Erich von Manstein tried to break through and failed. By February 1943, starving, frostbitten, and out of ammunition, General Friedrich Paulus surrendered what remained. Roughly 91,000 men marched into Soviet captivity. Fewer than 6,000 of them would ever see Germany again. At the same time, on the other side of the continent, the Afrika Korps was collapsing in the desert. Under Erwin Rommel, it had once pushed the British back to the gates of Egypt. But in October 1942, the Second Battle of El Alamein broke its momentum for good. Weeks later, American and British forces landed behind them in Operation Torch, squeezing German and Italian troops from both directions across North Africa. Supplies dried up, fuel ran out. Retreat became impossible. By May 1943, cornered in Tunisia, the last of the Afrika Korps and Panzer Army Afrika laid down their weapons. Nearly 250,000 prisoners were taken in what some call Tunisgrad, a defeat on the same scale as Stalingrad, just with far less attention. By the summer of 1943, Germany tried one final major offensive in the east, at Kursk. It was meant to encircle and destroy a massive Soviet salient before the Red Army could grow any stronger. Instead, it became the largest tank battle in history. Thousands of tanks collided across open steppe, most famously near the town of Prokhorovka. The Soviets had anticipated the attack and prepared deep, layered defenses. German losses in men and armor were catastrophic, and for the first time, an entire German offensive failed to achieve a single one of its objectives. After Kursk, Germany would never launch another major offensive in the east. From that point forward, it could only retreat. The retreat accelerated in June 1944 with Operation Bagration, a Soviet offensive timed almost perfectly with the Allied landings in Normandy. It targeted Army Group Center, one of the largest and most experienced German formations on the Eastern Front. Soviet forces broke through on multiple axes simultaneously, encircling entire divisions faster than they could withdraw. In a matter of weeks, Army Group Center effectively ceased to exist. Estimates place German losses at well over 300,000 men, killed, wounded, or captured. It remains one of the single largest defeats in German military history, larger in scale than Stalingrad, though far less remembered. Meanwhile, in the West, things were unfolding just as fast. In August 1944, in Normandy, American, British, Canadian, and Polish forces closed a trap around the German 7th Army and 5th Panzer Army near the town of Falaise. As the jaws of the pocket narrowed, tens of thousands of German troops tried to escape through a shrinking gap under constant artillery and air attack. Roads out of the pocket became littered with the wreckage of vehicles and the bodies of men and horses. By the time the gap finally closed, close to 50,000 German soldiers had been killed or captured, and the forces that escaped were shattered, stripped of most of their heavy equipment, and in no condition to defend France. Remarkably, the German 6th Army had been reconstituted after Stalingrad and sent back into the fight, only to be destroyed again. In August 1944, As part of the Soviet Jassy-Kishinev offensive in Romania, this second, 6th Army was encircled much like the first, cut off from resupply and reinforcement. Romania itself switched sides against Germany within days, collapsing what remained of the southern front entirely. Well over 100,000 German soldiers were killed or captured in the encirclement, meaning the same army had now been annihilated twice, less than 2 years apart. By January 1945, what remained of the German defense in the east rested on Army Group A, holding a thin line along the Vistula River in Poland. The Soviet Vistula-Oder offensive shattered that line almost immediately. In under 3 weeks, Red Army spearheads advanced hundreds of kilometers, moving faster than German commanders could react. Entire towns and cities fell within days of each other. Millions of German civilians fled westward through the winter, joining columns of retreating soldiers on roads clogged with refugees. By early February, Soviet forces had reached the Oder River, just miles from Berlin itself. The war in the east had, for all practical purposes, already been decided. That left only the capital. In April 1945, Soviet forces under Marshal Zhukov and Marshal Konev launched a two-pronged assault toward Berlin, fighting through heavily defended high ground at the Silo Heights before pushing into the city itself. What followed was brutal block-by-block urban combat, fought by a defense force made up of exhausted regular troops, teenage Hitler Youth conscripts, and elderly Volkssturm militia. On April 30th, as Soviet troops closed in on the government district, Adolf Hitler died by suicide in his bunker. 2 days later, the remaining German garrison in Berlin surrendered. Germany's unconditional surrender followed on May 8, 1945, bringing the war in Europe to its end. 8 armies, 8 different fronts, stretching from the deserts of North Africa to the ruins of Berlin. Each one had once seemed like proof of an unstoppable war machine. Each one, in the end, was ground down, encircled or overrun, until nothing was left of Nazi Germany's armies at all.